12:45.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jamie Burns, and this is Michael McKenzie. Say hey. Brian Keever.
Hello.
And today we'll be talking about PBI, pros and cons, and compare and contrasting traditional methods of teaching and project-based instruction. So the first off is, what is PBI, project-based instruction, or more commonly known as project-based learning, depending on which side you are on. Pretty much it is a teaching method in which students gain knowledge and skills by working for an extended period of time to investigate and respond to an authentic, engaging, and complex question, problem, or challenge. And these elements must include key knowledge, a challenging problem, and sustained inquiry that can last for 4 to 6 weeks. Authenticity, student voice and choice, in which students are given the opportunity to creatively showcase their work to a public audience, not just in the classroom. And also peer review, student reflection, self-reflection, and teaching reflection, critique and revision based on those reflections.
Very good points, Jamie.
And we can talk about the pros and cons in any order. So, you know, it's interdisciplinary in that we could be in a math class, but we could also talk about and relate it to chemistry or architecture or just any of the other sciences, really.
Yeah. So the pros would be the advantages for long-term memory for the students. Definitely the critical thinking skills, because you're proposing an issue or a real-world problem that allows them to expand on that critical thinking. Technology, you know, direct teaching doesn't give them the avenue to you know, expand their knowledge of technology. It constricts it. It keeps them strictly from the chalkboard to the student to the test, where this allows them to elaborate and explore. Collaboration around the world, you're not going to get that in direct teaching. You're just not going to get that in direct teaching at all. Real world problems and projects and problems. You know, that's the basis of PBI. It's providing them a real world problem, a real world scenario, and letting them run with it, and letting them develop, letting the student direct their learning and expand upon their learning exponentially. It's unlimited.
What would be the teacher's role in this environment?
Well, it's a facilitator. It's a coach. It's not a direct, I'm going to teach you everything. It's you're going to guide. You're going to help guide, but not completely guide the student. You want the student to let them take it where they want to take it, and hopefully the result, you know, that they're taking it far further than the teacher ever thought about going. You know, one of the next things on here says assessments vary, and with the assessments vary, they do. And one interesting fact I found in the Washington Post was they were talking about how a report in 2015 said that the states with the highest proficiency levels, you know, what they considered their normal proficiency levels, were actually 3 to 4 grade levels higher than those from those states with the who had the lowest proficiency levels, or what they consider normal. It seems like to me the PBI would help level the playing field. If you were able to pose the same real world questions to the same groups and allow them to run with it, you might find that proficiency gap closing. So there's your statistic.
And I look at these pros and I like critical thinking and collaboration and real world problems. They all fit together for me, because I think once you collaborate with the other students, instead of just listening to the teacher guide you down one certain path, you know, they think more outside the box and they can create their own paths instead of just taking the path the teacher made them, which is way easier, obviously, because that's the way I grew up. In my math classes, the teacher just said, this is the formula you use, go down this path and give me the answer, and I need the right answer, and that's what all is about. So I like these pros. I think they're really good. There's not very many cons.
But Brian, you wanted to know why you were doing it, didn't you?
Yeah, that's what I always asked my math teacher. I said, why am I doing it like this? And they had a hard time telling me that, really, where I went to school. They had a hard time telling me why I was doing it. They just told me to do it.
And it all boils down to, you know, traditional learning style is more focused on rote learning, which we'll get to here in the next slide. Do you have any other comments or concerns on the pros in this situation?
Not really the pros, and then, you know, and I think the cons even, you know, you're saying you got the time factor, the energy, training your students, and classroom cooperation. You know, whenever you look at I can see the time, the energy. In my opinion, I don't know that I actually agree with that, because I'm actually learning that project-based inquiry is, I guess my question would be, whose time? Because it seems like to me that the team actually might be less regard, because you're letting the student the learning and direct their learning, and you're coaching them. So time-wise, I don't know. And, you know, hey, with that regard, Jamie, I tell you what, this might be a good time to even show you this video. If you don't mind, do you mind dropping your screen share and then allowing me to share mine? I was going to show you this video. Who it is it's a gentleman that he's actually a high school student. He's did a TED Talk, and I just think he made this is his perspective of how he perceives him, you know, him as a high school student and his viewpoint of school today. And I just thought this would be a good video to share you guys. So let me show you what I got. All right, can you guys see this? All right, here we go.
Around the world today, we're watching millions of young people that are under the age of 25 collectively protest for self-expression, transparency, and a sweet taste of freedom. What we're doing to them is we're not giving them a voice. We're not letting them speak out. We're putting them on the sidelines. You know, what I like to say in public education is that we have the kids table and we have the adults table. At the adults table, that's where all the decisions are made. That's where it's like Thanksgiving, we're separated. And really, that's how it is. I mean, we need to have one table where we have kids and adults. What we offer, most importantly, kids, is a fresh perspective. I'm not an expert. I'm going to say that 100 times. I'm not an expert, because I don't know nobody knows everything, and we have to understand that. We have to give these fresh perspectives, people who are not necessarily in the education space, but people who are entrepreneurs, people in media, who are looking at it from a new perspective. If we make this a conversation not just about educators, but about the entire population of this world and this country, then we can change a lot more minds. What we're doing to kids is really dangerous.
So anyway, I just found his viewpoint very interesting, and I think students, I think it summarizes how many students feel. I mean, I think Brian even said it himself a minute ago. You felt like you weren't a part of the part of the big picture, the big table. You were constantly being told, you know, sit up straight, drink your milk, eat your peas. So It's just that, just one person's perspective. So if I've released my screen back to you, Jamie.
All right, and we'll get back to the presentation. All right, going back to time and energy, it kind of cut out for me when you were talking about energy. Yes, you kind of sit back and you guide students in your energy with it, but it can also be draining trying to get your students to be involved and be engaged in PBI. So now that we've kind of touched on the traditional versus PBI, and this is not an extensive list to say the least. These are just the major talking points. Where traditional is lecture-based, book work, you're spoon-fed the material instead of having that productive struggle that is pretty much in every article that you talk about in PBI.
You're told to eat your peas.
Yeah. Traditional teaching is more test-oriented. Now, I'm not saying that PBI can't be, but traditional is more test-oriented in that the students feel like they have to do good on, this next test, in order to, go progress in school. And I found that reading an article, it doesn't take much processing power, cognitive processing power, to go through school being spoon-fed material. It really doesn't. And on occasion, you have some group work, and then you graduate with a degree and go on your merry way. Again, what you were talking about, Brian, you said that it was mostly rote learning for you, that you were always asking why, and they never could give you a clear-cut answer to why.
Yeah,
and
they just said, this is the procedure, you follow this and give me the solution. That's what they wanted.
Yep. And that's
simple input, output.
Yep.
And that's a very traditional way of teaching with rote memory. Now, with PBI, we have inquiry-based, where the students are given the necessary amount of time in order to have a productive struggle to get to any answer, because there could be more than one. It's more content-oriented instead of test-oriented, in that we focus on the content, we focus on the material, but we apply it to a real-world situation. And this is where the higher cognitive processing power comes in which they're using their critical thinking skills. They're using, peer review and social constructs in order to self-reflect, just as the keys of PBI, on their work and their public product. And PBI, as mentioned in the video, 60 seconds, PBI start to finish success, that's paraphrasing. One of the students was talking, and he said that the majority of everything that he's done at that particular school in Texas, he remembers, and he will remember. It's easier to remember than anything that he's ever learned in prior to that.
I thought was interesting. I read a study in the ACSD website on an article about project-based instruction and how it relates to traditional instruction. And the study was done, and I thought it was really interesting. It was done by Bowler in 2002. It wasn't a very giant study. It was only done between 2 schools in Great Britain, and it was only a span of 3 years. And it was, one school did traditional and it was just a control sample, and the other school did project-based instruction. And after that 3 years, the school that did project-based learning, their scores were 3 times as higher, or there was 3 times as many students passed the national exam in the project-based learning school than it was the traditional school. And there was also another study done by Vanderbilt that was similar. It was about simulations and hands-on activities, and it was from the same article. They were kind of linked, but both studies showed. All right, so the thought I wanted to finish was that a study Bowler did and a study Vanderbilt University did both came up with the conclusion that doing students that get to experience a lot of projects, they all showed signs of reduced math anxiety and created positive attitude towards mathematics.
All right.
Very, very interesting. All right, references. Quite a few.
Well, it was a pleasure discussing PBI and comparing and contrasting traditional learning and PBI with you. I hope y'all have a great day, and I'll see you in class later.
See you next time.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.